I mean, you can think of these like wormholes. Like, oh, I need to get to the other side of LA or New York or whatever. Drop down the wormhole, pop out the other side.
The first loop will be in Las Vegas, built for the massive convention center, which hosts the Consumer Electronics Show every January. A walk from one end to another normally takes 15 minutes. That's now turned into a 1-minute ride.
Wow, the Las Vegas Loop is going to transport about 20,000 people per hour. That's so mind-blowing. This is going to change the way that we think about public transport. It's going to be 16 people per vehicle with an arterial flow rate of 120 kilometers per hour. It's about 70 miles per hour. And even that is a really restrained estimate, because Elon Musk says that they're going to go up to 150 miles per hour in these things.
Incredible if you could travel around LA, New York, DC, Chicago, Paris, London, anywhere at 150 miles an hour.
And it's going to be opening in a few weeks' time, in January 2021. Oh, and spoiler alert, it's going to do none of those things that Elon Musk was just promising. But before we get onto that, let's take a quick look at that fan-made simulation of the loop system working, and the sheer levels of delusional optimism that you need to convince yourself that this is actually going to be a success. Now, I mean, it was widely mocked on Twitter, firstly how even in the simulation they managed to run over a half a dozen people in a few seconds.
Various stations. This is an excellent simulation, very accurate. Thank you for helping the channel, and his YouTube channel and Twitter account.
Yes, it is a superbly accurate simulation, as long as object collision isn't a thing in the real world. I mean, how can you sit there congratulating someone on an excellent and realistic simulation as two cars actually are driving through each other right in front of you?
Thank you for helping the channel, and his YouTube channel and Twitter account.
And of course, it'll be an excellent simulation the second we invent Time Lord technology.
Time Lord science. It's bigger on the inside. Time Lord science. Bigger on the inside.
Okay, so what this gets right is the sort of general dimensions of the system. The general dimensions of the system is actually less than a mile long in total. There are 3 stations, 1, 2, and 3. 2 of them are above ground, presumably because making things underground is expensive, and this way all I could do is put a couple of ramps in and they're kind of done. So these are like little baby airport pick-off, drop-off zones. Apart from the dimensions are minuscule. You take a look at the size of this walkway. I mean, the roads, the width of the roads here is minuscule. And this is how, of course, they save a lot of money by doing this. I'm not entirely certain this is going to work out with the safety. But maybe one of the more funny things is this guy's just ramped up the speed on the cars moving. It turns out this isn't one of the great bottlenecks, because you're only going half a mile anyway. There's not much to be gained by accelerating really quickly and slowing down really quickly. But what is kind of funny on this is when you take a look at it working, and let me blow this up for you. Let me blow that all the way up for you. So these cars are going 60 miles per hour, 70 miles per hour, 100 kilometers per hour, that sort of thing. And boom, 90-degree corner, 60 miles per hour. And it's like, I'm not so sure that you're quite adhering to the rules of physics in this simulation. So it's time for reality versus the loop. They're offering these aspirational speeds of 150 miles per hour. How much is this system likely to be able to deliver at best? Well, we can get an idea from that in that these are just regular cars driving through tunnels. And we know that cars have turning circles. So we can compare the turning circle of, say, for instance, this loop here to something maybe on the ground. Good. So it looks like this road here has about the same curvature as the loop system. Let's take a look at what the speed limit is there. So let's take our little guy and drop him down there somewhere. And we need to find a speed limit sign. Oh, look, the speed limit is 25 miles per hour. And you'll also see that it's absolutely, there are these things everywhere, shuttles, which carry a little bit more than 4 people. But hey, maybe that's not the fairest of comparisons, these little residential streets where the speed limit's going to be very low. Let's compare it to the freeway. We all know what the turning circles are like on the freeway where cars are traveling at 60, 70 miles per hour, which is what our hero is anticipating they're going to be traveling in the loop system. Well, there's a freeway over here with a corner on it. Yeah, let's compare the turning circle at 60 miles per hour to the loop system. And that's actually a pretty decent corner. No, that's probably the steepest corner that you're going to get on a freeway. Good. So in reality, this is about the longest stretch on the entire loop system, the longest straight stretch, which is about a quarter of a mile long, which is about 0.4 kilometers, that sort of thing. And yeah, you're going to have to slow down for the station anyway, because that's so poorly designed. We'll come on to that in a second. And then this corner here is going to be very slow. It's going to be like 30, 40 miles per hour tops, that sort of thing. Anyway, so this is the longest straight section. So what's the best possible speed that we're likely to get out of this? And we can get an idea of this, given these are just cars accelerating up to speed. We can compare it to a slip road on a freeway. So on a freeway, you have slip roads like this. So cars come off the road here at about 30 miles per hour, then they've got to accelerate up to 60, 70 miles per hour. That's 100 kilometers per hour. And that's sort of what you're looking at, along with a radius of curvature. And this is, of course, so you don't slow down the cars on the main road by putting slow cars into the stream of traffic. Bad design loop. And likewise, when you're coming off, this is about what you need to slow down from 60-ish miles per hour to a more residential type speed. And where, pray tell, is the slip road for the central station? It doesn't exist. The cars pull directly into traffic. Yeah, you're not going to get cars going through this thing at 150 miles per hour anytime soon. And yes, those were the claims made by the Boring Company about the Las Vegas Convention Center loop.
I'm a con man, or maybe I'm a god, zooming around the planet in my hyperloop and pond.
So realistically, you've got about 400 meters to speed up and slow down in. You're going to be basically doing nothing but accelerating and decelerating in this tube.
Visitors will be packed into a Model X, Model 3, or a modified Tesla that can fit up to 16 people. This is an earlier prototype.
No, that's a computer-generated fantasy. It's real, like this is real.
Tesla has started to conduct trials inside the tunnels and is preparing to inaugurate the new tunnels. The latest information released about the project was unsurprisingly from one of Musk's tweets. When talking about what vehicles would be used for the transportation in the boring tunnel, he said, "We simplified this a lot. It's basically just Teslas in tunnels at this point, which is way more profound than it sounds."
Oh yes, it's truly profound. The idea of driving cars through tunnels, especially ones with really steep ramps, not like, high-speed entry ramps like something like this. I mean, for this guy, it's so difficult to tell whether these people are just being dumb for fun or something, but seriously, if this driving cars in tunnels is profound for you, well, what about autonomous, electric, massive self-driving cars on an autonomous, mechanical, self-driving system? That must be super profound.
The vehicles will be zipping through the tunnels at up to 155 miles per hour, initially with a driver and eventually autonomously.
Yeah, this is what it looks like when you get people reviewing things who have never seen what's actually being delivered. I mean, the gulf between what is promised and what is being delivered.
Turn around, look at that. You see what I mean? It's plump, it's juicy, it's 3 inches thick.
This is an earlier prototype. The vehicles will be zipping through the tunnels at up to 155 miles per hour.
Now, look at this sorry, miserable, squashed thing. Can anybody tell me what's wrong with this picture?
I mean, look, the computer graphics here are for a people mover, which has to accelerate relatively slowly, essentially like a bus, because otherwise you'll throw the people all over the place. And you'll remember from earlier, these were the slip roads for cars to accelerate merely up to 60 miles per hour or something. Well, this thing's going to go at least twice as fast. So you're going to need a slip road just for this little people mover here that is going to be about as long as the entire loop system as it stands. Oh, and the cost of that loop system? Oh, about $50 million. So you need one slipway to get on, one slipway to get off. And so the cost of the stations, minimalistically, is about $100 million per shot.
And unlike a subway, there isn't a limit to the number of stations. They can be as discrete as a couple of parking spaces.
Well, not really. You've got to at least dig a kilometre or mile of tube each way for the slipways, and you need to create a bloody great hole in the ground. I'm not so sure that's that different from a subway. But apart from, of course, trains carry about 1,000 people, where, these maybe carry 10 people. 4 if you're in a car. 3 if you need a driver in that car. Yep, this is Elon Musk's brilliant contribution to making the car transport problem go away, is chauffeur-driven cars in tunnels. The Boring Company executive told the planning committee last year that the cars would have human drivers for additional safety. And that's before you worry about having tiny, inaccessible tunnels going all over the city, which if there's an accident in them, which is inevitably going to happen, how are you going to unblock this again? Yeah, the loop simply doesn't withstand contact with reality. I mean, let's cover the most basic thing first. A metro train will carry about 1,000 people, so at 3 passengers per car, given these are going to have chauffeurs in them. So to carry the same number of people as one commuter train, you would need to move about 300 cars. And this is roughly what the footprint of those would look like. So these are the footprints that carry about the same number of people.
Finally, there's something that I think could solve the goddamn traffic problem.
The future should be anything but boring.
And of course, one of these requires 1 manpower to run it, the other requires 300 people to run it. That was great for job creation, don't get me wrong, but maybe not the best business model. And then, of course, you've got the problem with failure points. If you get a breakdown on a train, it essentially stops up the system. However, a single car breakdown also has the same effect. If you get a car breakdown in one of these tunnels, the whole system stops almost instantly, meaning that you now have 300 times more failure points than you had before. And I'll be honest, this is one of the few cases where I would actually rather have the autonomous driving system rather than a human driver.
An electric skate was supposed to help center the car. That was axed in favor of retractable wheels, but both ideas have been abandoned, and instead the vehicle will rely on its own tires, driving through a paved tunnel.
Because, let's be real, you want to get people to drive around and round a kilometre-long tube with very small tolerances, where if someone just gets tired or something like that and they lose control in the tunnel, I'm pretty sure they've not done any tests on what happens then, but I'm going to guess it's not pretty. And this is just something that you don't get with trains, because they run on rails. You can't lose control in a train due to a moment's inattention. Which brings us on to tunnel fires. Now, tunnel fires are notoriously nasty because when you get a fire in a tunnel, it gets very hot and there's nowhere for the heat to go. So you can't usually get close enough to the fire to actually try and put it out. Now, a lot of the fires that you get in tunnels are with regular cars because the gasoline burns and all that sort of thing. You don't really get that sort of thing with metro trains because metro trains don't have any fuel source like that on board. The energy for the train is delivered through the power lines. They don't carry it on board the vehicles. That's not true with battery-powered cars. They've got a comparable amount of energy in them to the gasoline fuel tanks. So when they fail, they tend to cascade fail, and that can be fairly spectacular. On top of that, the batteries are actually flammable. I mean, you only have to take a look at the old Tesla fire to realize that, one of these fires in a tunnel, and it would fill the tunnel with smoke very quickly. A point which is aggravated by the small tunnel size.
Another way to cut costs is by building smaller tunnels. The standard size for a single lane is 28 feet in diameter. Borings will only be 12 feet, which doesn't leave a lot of room, so although technically any electric vehicle with autonomous capabilities will be able to use them in the future, they'll have to fit.
Leading to the obvious question, is it even possible to get out of those cars while you're in this Elon Musk loop? And, as is usually the requirement, even for people with limited mobility.
Traffic is soul-destroying. It's like acid on the soul. It's horrible.
And his solution might just end traffic for good.
Yeah. Meanwhile, in reality, TechCrunch has an article where they have the fire regulations pegging the maximum occupancy or the loading for one of the loop stations at being about 800 passengers per hour, which is about the same as one commuter train per hour. Look, what would you actually want out of a public transport system? Well, you want it to be quick, safe, reliable, and to carry lots of people. Well, will the loop be quick? Due to how close the stations are together and how windy the track is, it really won't have any speed advantages over a regular metro. Certainly not the 150 miles per hour that was promised. Will it be safe? Well, I'm pretty skeptical about that too. Will it be reliable? Well, it's kind of difficult to see how this is going to be as reliable as a regular metro. And will it carry lots of people? Carrying the equivalent of one metro train per hour? That's not quite it.
It would also be as much as 9 times the speed of a train. If you find it uncomfortable, it will be hard to handle what comes next, because the loop is a stepping stone toward the Hyperloop.
I'm a con man, or maybe I'm a god, zooming around the planet in my hyperlooping pond.
But hey, Musk fans, for this one, we're really not going to have to wait that long to see if he's full of crap or not. Because it's opening in about a month's time. My prediction? for most people, you know, the ones who aren't Elon Musk fans, there will be a zero wow factor from driving through a tiny tunnel at modest speeds in a regular car. So that's the video for today. If you enjoyed it, drop a thumbs up on it. And if you don't want to miss out on more videos like this, you can always hit the notification bell or subscribe or that sort of thing. And as ever, if you really like the work of this channel and want to support it directly, you can do it through Patreon. And thanks for watching.